Good afternoon, class. Here is the dyslexia module that I promised. It's going to be online. Take your time doing it. I'm going to talk through the PowerPoint. You have nothing more to do than the dyslexia quiz, and you get two attempts. And so it should show you the questions you missed, so you know what to go back in and do a little better at. But I'll take the higher of the two scores. So that being said, let me go ahead and share my screen and talk through the PowerPoint. So 1 minute. Let me go to share screen. As you can tell, I sound lovely. I decided that the best time to get sick during the semester is right at the end during Thanksgiving break. So here we go. One sec. Okay. So dyslexia module, here we go. This is based on the dyslexia handbook from Texas, and it was revised very recently. And so this is an updated version of what you need to know as secondary teachers about dyslexia and students who are identified as having dyslexia. If you're interested, you can go to the link here, read the handbook. It's very long, but this PowerPoint pretty much summarizes the big major points. One definition for dyslexia is a disorder of constitutional origin manifested by a difficulty in learning to read, write, or spell, despite conventional instruction, adequate intelligence, and sociocultural opportunity, which basically means dyslexia affects reading, writing, or spelling, and sometimes language. But that's it. So typically, a student who has identified as having dyslexia, that's where their challenge is. They're going to be either average or above average intelligence. And so, as a content teacher, it's important to understand if a child comes to you with difficulty reading, writing, or spelling, that's probably the only issue they're going to have. With the proper things in place, they should be able to learn your content just fine. Here's another definition for dyslexia, and it's really similar to the Texas one. It talks about it being a neurobiological in origin type of condition. So what that means, it's something that takes place, it takes place in the brain. There's something that's going on with the language processing that is causing the difficulty with reading, writing, and spelling. And so they're very similar definitions. That being said, I recommend watching this YouTube video. It's really interesting. I'm not going to play it right now because that would take a long time, but it's an interesting talk by a young lady who was very lately identified as having dyslexia, I think when she was 16. And so it's just more information that might give you some insight into the lives of those who have dyslexia and some ways in which people work to become more proficient at reading, writing, and spelling. With dyslexia, these are some possible issues students might have. It's a spectrum disorder, so you need to understand that two students with dyslexia will very likely have very different needs. So it's sometimes it's segmenting, blending, and manipulating sounds and words. Some students with dyslexia can do those things. Sometimes it's learning the names of letters and their associated sounds, holding information about sounds and words, rapidly recalling the names of familiar objects, colors. Again, it's a reading language processing disorder. Variable difficulties with aspects of reading comprehension, variable difficulty with aspects of written language. And so you're going to see a wide variety of needs from students identified with the same dyslexia. Common risk factors on these next pages, don't think too hard about them. What this means is if I am a preschool teacher, I know that these are the things that I'm going to be teaching related to reading and language. A child with dyslexia is going to have a difficult time mastering these things. So if I have a child in 4K who is still seems to have a delay in learning to talk, checking for all their issues, it could be a situation where the child may need dyslexia services. Okay. So that's important to keep in mind. These are the things in kinder and first grade that typically students are learning to do we start have to sort of consider that it might be dyslexia when the child gets stuck and cannot perhaps, like I said, become proficient in these skills. So I'm going to kind of quickly go through some of these. In grades K through 3, students must be provided with evidence-based phonics instruction. So when you hear, especially those of you guys who are special education majors or perhaps early childhood majors, you may hear from talks about the science of teaching reading. It kind of pairs into this pretty nicely because due to a lot of different movements in literacy and in politics, yes, politics, schools have to provide evidence-based phonics instruction, and they need to place highly effective teachers in grades K2 through 2 and provide them with those diagnostic tools to help them check students and screen them for dyslexia in this situation. So all kindergartners, first grade students must be screened for dyslexia and related disorders. Usually schools will have like a universal screener. It's going to be different. M-Class is one of those screeners. So if you are familiar with working with kids who are working in a CCISD school, you may hear about M-Class, and that's fine because that is a tool that they use to screen all students. But if there's something that comes up in those screenings, that might indicate that we need to do further testing for the student to see if in fact that's the situation. Because we know a lot of times kids will have bad test days, and that's normal. But if there's evidence that shows students show the characteristics of dyslexia, that full evaluation should indicate whether or not services are really needed. So, no, you not have to memorize this chart, but this chart does sort of flow through how students are moved through the system when something occurs where we're worried that dyslexia may be the issue. Also understand parents can be an advocate as well. So if you have a niece or a nephew or even one of your own children and you're concerned, you can advocate for screening. So that's something else to keep in mind. These are the 6 skills that are typically focused on when students have dyslexia. Not all of them for all students, but some of them, yes. And the tricky part of the quiz is trying to tell or differentiate between what these mean. Phonological awareness is understanding the sounds within words, the individual sounds, being able to divide sound or words into sounds. So like the word bread, b-r-e-d, has four phonemes, even though there's 5 letters, there's 4 distinct sounds. And sometimes students get stuck at that point when it comes to reading, writing, and language. Sound symbol association is when we bring in the alphabet. Sound symbol association is knowing that the letter A makes A or A sound, B makes the B sound, and so forth. So phonological awareness, we're at the sound level. Sound symbol association, now students are integrating the alphabet and their related sounds as it pertains to words. Syllabication, you may remember this from school. That's when you break sounds or words into its beats. So syllabication, 6 syllables or 5 syllables. Syllabication, whatever, 5 syllables. I don't feel good today, but you see the point. The point is we can clap through it, we can sound through it. Syllabication, students can split those words up in a way that's going to help them read longer, more complex words. That's how sometimes when kids can do phonological awareness and they can do sound symbol association, it's the longer words where they're having issues, they're having a hard time with their active memory, pulling those phonic skills together with those long words. Can we help them break them into syllables? Orthography is spelling patterns. So when we see orthography, we're talking about patterns in spelling. We think about word families, words that end in ing. The end in ing, we can assume it's going to go ing. So we have things like sing, bring, wing. Understanding those spelling patterns and being able to not only read the word, but spell the word. Morphology is meaning units of words. So meaning units would be like Greek and Latin roots, prefixes, suffixes. And you may remember maybe when you were in a middle school when you were learning maybe in your biology class and you had to learn about Greek and Latin roots in order to understand what words meant in your content. Same kind of thing with students, especially your older readers. This may be their biggest need, is to work with morphology to help them not only be able to understand the word's meaning, but for students with dyslexia, it's helping them be able to sound those words out because they know what that sound part should read like. Reading comprehension, of course, comprehending and understanding what was read, and then reading fluency. That is a student's ability to read smoothly, relatively quickly, and have the right vocal inflection. We call it prosody. So it's speed, accuracy, and prosody, but it also includes comprehension. So if a student sounds fluent, they're fluent if they also understand what they've read. That's another thing to keep in mind. So the hardest part of the quiz is really going to be basically understanding the difference between some of those words. So I've pulled some extra information into our module that I'm hoping will help you guys. And so let me go ahead and share my screen again, but this time I'm going to be sharing the dyslexia module. I've got the module in 2 different modules, so I'm hoping you guys can find everything you need here. Let me go ahead and get here real quick. So modules, share screen, share screen. Awesome. And again, I apologize for my stammering. I've been sick for 2 days. It better go away because I want to enjoy a delicious Thanksgiving meal. So we've got dyslexia overview and practice, and I've also got it down here. Same materials. I've just hit a few things that we're not going to do. So there is a cheat sheet here that you can use, and it gives you examples of these words along with some the part in red is sort of like examples, whereas the part in black is more like the definition. So I'm hoping this will help you. This is your study sheet. Know what these mean. Go through the PowerPoint, make sure you understand the testing requirements that Texas has, and then look and think about what the what the definition of dyslexia is. One more thing, and you'll get this if you're watching this video. Don't forget, the most important thing about reading, in my opinion, and in most of my colleagues' opinion, is comprehension. Never forget about comprehension. As a language arts teacher or as a dyslexia specialist, I knew that not only did I need to work with kids on phonological awareness, morphology, I made sure they had some comprehension strategies because all kids have to take that STAR test. And besides, reading's the most important part of or comprehension, I mean, most important part of reading. That's the whole point of reading, to gain knowledge from what you've read. So have a good Thanksgiving, study the best you can, and then I'll see you guys December 3rd, and we'll see how y'all did on these quizzes for those of you guys who have finished it. You guys have a great week, and I will talk to you guys when we get back from Thanksgiving. Thank you.